Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. So, originally I had an entirely different video in mind for this week, when some news dropped that really made me rethink my plans. Disney Plus has announced that it has given a green light to a Percy Jackson streaming series. Now, obviously we've known for a while that this was in development. I think I even talk about it in my video covering the Sea of Monsters movie, but it was never a guaranteed thing until now, with series author Rick Riordan even recording a message about that news that was posted to the official Disney Plus channel. Things are obviously still super early in the process though, which is why I thought it would be fun to jump in here and talk about how I'd like to see this take on the franchise set itself apart from the two films that came before. I want to get straight into that, but let me know what's most important for you to see in the show in the comments below. Oh, and if you like this video, click that button too, so YouTube actually knows to show it to more people. With that aside though, let's talk about this new opportunity for Percy Jackson to finally redeem itself. So here's the thing, I am 100% not going to be the audience that this show is aimed at, and that's okay. Percy Jackson is a really fun, adventure-filled, middle-grade book series, and it should remain that way. I don't think that they should try to age up the stories like the original films did, especially the second one. But I do think that being a streaming show provides them with something that the movies just missed out on completely, actually giving these characters some room to breathe and get to know each other. I know that sounds incredibly simple, but one look at the two Percy Jackson movies will kind of tell you what I mean. These things are exhausting fetch quests. They manage to feel really rushed and overlong at the same time. The books aren't exactly deep and complex stories driven by the characters' most inner lives, but they are filled with charming moments between the cast. There's a lot of small character details that add something to our understanding of the main trio and the supporting players. The vast majority of those moments were stripped away in the films. I understand why the screenwriters and directors think they need to do this. They want to fit the entire book into one movie and hit all the big important beats, so all the minor character stuff is allowed to fall by the wayside. But it's exactly those fun, interesting interactions between the characters that set the story apart from just a generic D&D style journey. Without all those moments, we're left with pretty bland, uninteresting leads, which is exactly what we got here. Well, okay, aside from Brandon T. Jackson's Grover, who has a completely different personality than the Grover of the books, but you can at least tell the actor is trying to bring something fun to that character. Anyway, a Percy Jackson show has the ability to change all that. Yes, you can have those big moments, but make time for the small ones as well. A character like Luke is exactly where I would start. I went over this before, but it's just really sad what the movies turned him into. Again, I'm not going to claim these are super complex novels, they're not, but Luke's motivations and feelings about his father and his heritage are well written. He's clearly the villain of the story, but he also has a firmly articulated point of view and a reason to do what he does. And Riordan doesn't shy away from the fact that when it comes to the gods and their callous actions, he probably even has a point, even if the way he responds to that point does a lot more harm than good. This was almost entirely scrubbed away in the films, and we're given a Luke who never once seems like a heroic figure that Percy would look up to. He comes off like a smug weasel, or in the words of Riordan, who hated this version of the character, a sniveling little slimeball. So when his betrayal becomes known, it just feels inevitable, like the movie is going through the motions. In the book, while the twist is still fairly predictable, it at least packs an emotional punch because we've seen Percy and Luke's friendship grow believably throughout the novel. If nothing else, that's the sort of thing the show needs to fix. I'm hoping that the people behind this new show at least understand the appeal of the source material beyond just seeing it as a vehicle for a Harry Potter knockoff cash grab. Now, there's still a lot of other ways that the show could be bad, don't get me wrong, but if they get this aspect right, I think they'll be at least halfway there. And obviously, a lot of that will come down to casting. I've seen a lot of articles and videos trying to fan cast the series, so I'll just say up front, I'm not going to do that. I think this should be a cast of basically complete unknowns, with no one at all returning from the films. I don't really mean this as an insult to those casts. I actually think actors like Anthony Head and Stanley Tucci did a good job. But this show definitely shouldn't try to actively remind us of those movies. Oh, and remember how I said that the films really rush through their stories in order to deliver the big plot moments at the expense of everything else? Well, the really good news for this show is that they also managed to screw those up as well, especially Sea of Monsters, which haphazardly attempts to wrap up the whole series when the first movie underperformed. That was disappointing for fans, but it might be great for Disney Plus because it means nearly all the best and most memorable moments of the series still have yet to be adapted for the screen at all. Even great stuff from the first book, like Percy's battle on the beach with Ares, which the author has called the best, most cinematic scene in the entire novel, or Krusty's waterbed palace, will basically be new to anyone who hasn't read The Lightning Thief. Really, the thing the show probably most has going for it is just how bad and unfaithful the old films were to the source material, which should help the series not feel stale even if they're just doing a fairly straightforward adaptation of the books. Obviously though, we just don't have much to go on yet. One of the few things we know is that the pilot will be directed by James Bowman, probably best known these days for directing the 2011 Muppets movie and the recent live-action Dora the Explorer film. I'll always know him best though for co-creating the Flight of the Conchords HBO show, a really charming cult sitcom that I liked a lot back in the late 2000s. If he can bring some of that light comedic touch to the characters and their friendships here, that could go a long way to solving many of the movie's problems. I'm not saying the Disney Plus show will be perfect. If they're not super careful, it could easily come off as cheap looking and featuring a ton of bad child acting. But I think the books are very adaptable. This isn't a Foundation on Apple Plus situation where they're trying to adapt complex, centuries-spanning short stories. These books are really straightforward adventures that should translate well to TV in the right hands and with the right budget. How it'll actually go, it's obviously too early to tell. But I do know that Riordan does care about getting this show right. He called the movies his, quote, life's work going through the meat grinder, and even published his emails to the movie studio on his website, something I talked about in my first Percy Jackson video, to really just show how much he was trying to save the films from themselves. He's clearly an author who wants to take an active role in the production to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. These are fun, enjoyable kids' books, and at the very least I think they deserve a shot at the screen from a team who doesn't seem to actively despise the story they're telling. And it seems like after all these years, that's what we'll finally be getting.
Would you prefer that I looked like this?
Oh, no! No!
Again, let me know what you'd like to see in the show down below, and if you're looking for some exclusive videos from me that aren't on YouTube, maybe it's finally time to check out Nebula, my streaming service that I'm on alongside creators like Nando V Movies, H Bomber Guys, Cinema Wins, and so much more. What I love about Nebula is that it's creator driven first, so things like YouTube's algorithms, ads, and bots just aren't an issue there. I've uploaded a bunch of exclusive videos on everything from Hulk to Rick and Morty to Cheers, and the best part is it's bundled in with an amazing documentary streaming service, Curiosity Stream. This month I've been watching The History of Home, narrated by Parks and Rec's Nick Offerman, which you can only see on Curiosity Stream. Not to mention all their other documentaries on science, nature, and tech. When you sign up for Curiosity Stream, you'll receive an email welcoming you to Nebula as well. You're in for a great deal too, because you can get both services for just $14.79 for an entire year. So sign up now by going to curiositystream.com/captainmidnight. That's curiositystream.com/captainmidnight.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.